This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans, so meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to #Ad by Penji. This is the podcast where we discuss everything influencer marketing related. We talk tips to help assist you in your influencer journeys and so much more. I'm your host, Daniela, and I'm Penji's influencer coordinator. Today, I'm joined here with a very special guest, Hillary Young. Hi, Hillary. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. For anybody that wants to know a little bit more about you, to give everybody context of you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, about your social media and everything else?
Absolutely. So, my name is Hillary Young, and I am a brand strategist. I bring, oh my goodness, like over 20 years of experience to the table now. I started my career in television production and worked for like The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I worked with The Colbert Report with Stephen Colbert. I worked for College Humor for many years and eventually transitioned into the marketing space. And I still I'm doing storytelling, no matter which medium I'm focused on. So I love what I do. I love getting to help brands tell their stories. And I mean, you can find me everywhere. I'm on TikTok, Hillary Young Creative. I'm on Instagram, Hillary Young Creative. I'm on LinkedIn as Hillary Young, and I'm trying to think of anywhere else. I don't know. I used to be on Twitter, but I'm not there really anymore. So, um, yeah, easy to find me, Hillary Young Creatives.
So, Hillary, you said that you have a background sort of in the filming aspect of it, right? Like you were on College Humor, you said Stephen Colbert. Like that's a pretty impressive resume, I would say, 'cause you have been on pretty popular filming productions, and I mean, I remember watching College Humor when I was a kid on YouTube and, like, all of the videos that they used to make. What made you want to transition from that into I know that your biggest focus now in the marketing side is branding. What made you wanna focus to marketing and more specifically branding?
So that's a great question. I would say it was a very happy accident. I spent about 10 years working in television production. I lived up in New York City. And I just felt a little burnt out. Like production hours are really intense. When I was on set, I was working 14, 15, 16-hour days. And it just was very hard to have a life outside of um, work. And I knew I didn't really want that for myself. So um, life kind of intervened. I started dating my now husband, who is based down in Philadelphia. And he like lured me down here. And I realized that I kind of had no choice but to figure out what else I could do with my life. And I tried a bunch of different things. Kind of starting out in the production space, but not like television production. But nothing was really feeling right, nothing clicked, and eventually I started volunteering for nonprofits and like assisting with their marketing departments because they were always really under-resourced and I was always really creative. So it was very easy for me to step in and help them. And I realized oh, marketing is something I could do. It comes naturally to me, especially the storytelling aspect is really the bridge between the two parts of my career. And, whether I was getting to tell stories on TV or on the internet with video, it was the same set of creative skills and, ways to approach, uh, I guess, creative problem solving that I loved about branding. So, now I get to bring that same energy and same, really my approach has never really changed. So I love getting to do it for brands now.
That's really interesting because I think what you said about how storytelling has always been sort of the common denominator in your whole career. Um, I think a lot of people don't know how much storytelling is involved in a brand, in branding in general, into having sort of successful branding is a lot of that kind of knowing to tell your own story or the story of your product, of your brand, right? Um, what made you sort of figure all of this out? Was it just kind of came naturally to you because you were so good at storytelling that you realized like, oh, this is a very important aspect of branding, or is it something of a process that you sort of learned along the way?
It was definitely a process. I think it's very easy now to look back and connect dots, but in the moment, I don't think I was like conscious about how I was thinking about it or even the storytelling piece. But I realized I loved marketing, like helping these nonprofits, and then ended up getting hired by a for-profit company. I worked for a medical device company, and really, I was brought in to be their digital storyteller. So I had my hands in a little bit of everything. I worked on blog content for them. I worked on emails. I worked on their website. I worked hand in hand with a video production team. I wrote scripts. I produced videos. I managed social media channels. I handled a little bit of PR for them. So I think getting to do a little bit of everything helped me um, get closer and closer to what I loved most about marketing, which was really like creating those connections with an audience. And, I think at the time too, we're talking like I really transitioned into marketing in 2012, 2013, and people were not talking about branding or brand strategy the same way that they are now. Like, it was a very different time, and so it kind of allowed me to chart my own course around how I was thinking about it and, um, my approach to it, and there weren't even positions at companies, um, where this stuff was being spoken about. It really was an evolution, and it was great because as more brands realized that this was something that they needed, I was able to come in and fill that void for them because I'd really carved out a nice niche for myself in that space.
It's crazy because what you say is so true. I think back in like the early 2010s, branding was sort of starting to have this big new
Moment.
moment. Yeah, that's the word. For for me, it was insane, sort of this millennial surge of like, I think with millennials joining, I say millennial because I think like millennials when they joined the social media space and they started to make a lot of the trendy aesthetic things make like very popular, it sort of started to change how everything started. It created a really big shift in people's brandings because I think you can see a really big difference of how people had their own brands and the aesthetic side of it and the like just like the pretty part of it before that, then, what happened at that point, and now it's insane because I feel like now, even with, like, very I think now there's, like, a new surge for more laid back and natural content, but even that is very curated nowadays, right? Like, even your most casual post is gonna have intent behind it, which I think was not the case back in, like, 2012 when Instagram was just posting a random picture of your breakfast food.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the technology that was introduced has changed the way in which obviously a lot of brands are able to market their business. I mean, that has been a real game changer because it used to be, you know, again, I came from TV. So, like, a part of what I was doing, or even at College Humor, part of what we were doing was like selling advertising and creating content like in partnership with advertisers. That model is different. It's evolved. I think that's where like influencers and sponsored posts come in to play now. But, people are not turning to traditional marketing method or leaning on traditional marketing methods as much as they had to, before the rise of certain platforms. So, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm a millennial and I think it's not just the aesthetic. I think a lot of the millennials, like, we just saw things being done that we like, I remember coming into the industry I was working in, which was medical device sales, and we were like selling to seniors, really, to people over the age of 65. And my approach was like, all of the competitors are marketing on fear. It's all fear-based marketing of like, you're gonna get hurt if you don't have this. And my approach was like, this is not the way to get people, and this is not the way to break through like a stigma around aging and how people think of that. And like, we really have to meet people where they are and talk to people more like humans and like understand the audience and figure out a way to create authentic connection. And I think that's really like that's the heart of any good brand strategy is how do you foster authentic connection and how do you create authenticity? Because even if the brand aesthetic is great, if the messaging behind it is fluff, or if when it comes to personal brands, I think we've seen a lot of people kind of have this fall from grace when who they put themselves out there to be doesn't match
with who they are.
saying or doing. And there's a real consequence to that. So I think the more authentic you can be as a business brand or a personal brand, the more successful you'll be in the
Yeah,
marketplace.
it's true. I think that authenticity is something that is very coveted nowadays, especially because there has been sort of a with the rise of more professional things happening, I think authenticity has been losing sort of the plate lately, mostly. Even though people are craving it, I think it's ironic that people crave it, but we have less and less of it.
I don't know. I would disagree. I think people want more and more of it, and I think a lot of brands are having a spotlight shown on them in a negative way that is actually really negatively impacting their business and their brand image, as a result of being unable to cultivate authenticity across the board. I think people just like don't really want to, I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna like look at Ballerina Farm or look at like what's going on with Blake Lively, right? Like all of these things, I think people want to poke holes in what they're seeing because they don't want to be served up that kind of stuff anymore. And I think authenticity rules, and anything else is, people are not settling for less anymore. I think people are just much savvier about what authenticity looks like or should look like.
And that's interesting because the way that I see it is more like I think people are craving it more and more, and you do see a lot of like situations like the one with you mentioned with like Lively, even Starbucks. I was like actually watching a YouTube video today about Starbucks stocks falling because of like a lot of different issues that they're having with their business. But I feel like even though there's like a rise for that sort of need for authenticity, I also feel like for some reason the parties that are being targeted are not willing to give it, but they're sort of doubling down on their own, um, methods, or they're giving out fake things, which is causing a lot of that sort of backlash.
You mean
right?
like virtue signaling?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but again, that's not rooted in authenticity. Like that's why they're facing the backlash because people can sniff that out. And I think, you know, I mean, I've talked about this a lot in my own content that I create, but whether you're a business brand or a personal brand, like you are not obligated to talk about controversial topics. You're not obligated to weigh in on certain days of the year that are dedicated to, specific groups. Like you are not obligated to do that. And my approach is always lead with authenticity. So if it is part of your mission, your brand messaging, how like the fabric of your business and your brand, talk about it, shout it from the rooftops. But otherwise, I think the majority of people just want to engage with your brand because they're enjoying your brand. They're not here for other reasons. So, um, yeah, I think cultivating honest messaging is always more authentic than virtue signaling because you think it's the trendy or right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. So for you, like I think we at Penji, what we do is that we have a lot of people who need to outsource graphic design for various different reasons. And we sort of do that for them, right? So we have a team of designers, they can put in designs and they can put in requests, projects, and then we'll do the design for them. A lot of our customers want to always learn more about branding and, marketing and everything because if they're outsourcing graphic design, usually they're asking also for marketing advice. What would you say is for especially for smaller businesses who are just starting to establish their own brand, how do you think the path for defining that is and how to properly do it and, where do you even start?
I always start with two things, which is really what is your mission? Understand what your mission is and what you're driven by, and use that as a North Star for everything else. And then really do a deep dive into who your target audience is and think about what they care about and what they're anxious about and what they're struggling with and what their challenges are and how your business, how your mission can address those needs. So it's really like mission, audience, value propositions. And I think that those three pieces really make up the strong foundation of any brand strategy. And it's really easy to like craft messaging in a confident way once you have those three things defined.
Yeah, because I think I've seen a lot of people who struggle with having that sort of structure when it comes to building their brand. So they're gonna have like, like one day they're saying one thing that's a bit more playful, and then the next day it's a bit more serious the way that they're promoting the brand. And I think it can be confusing for a consumer because they're not seeing a specific pattern of how that brand is handled, especially now that you mentioned that consumers are a lot more savvy. I think about when internet I mean, I've grown up with the internet, so I don't really remember a time without it, but I still think, like, when I was a kid or, when my parents were young, like, where marketing was more just, like, for you, to look at, and that's it, and I think customers were a lot less aware of everything, right? Um, but now we have a smarter consumer that demands more attention, that demands also smarter marketing, and, like you said, there needs to be more cohesiveness with a brand.
Yeah, it's not just cohesion. I mean, cohesion and consistency are obviously very important pieces of it, but it's also um personalization. I think there's so much noise on the internet. Like we have so many things in our faces constantly at all times that unless you can find a way to make someone see themselves in your message, they're not going to stop scrolling for you or they're not going to, pay attention to what you're saying or talking about as a brand. So I think the understanding your audience piece is probably the most valuable exercise that you can do as a brand because um, I've seen lots of brands, both big and small. I've worked with like enterprise level companies. I've worked with solopreneurs. I've worked with a bunch of um, Instagram influencers, and it's all the same. Like the process is all the same. And I've seen a lot of them make the same mistake that they center themselves and what they want to say and what they think is important over what their audience needs to hear from them. And I think it's really important to put your own like personal thoughts about it on the back burner and really let your audience lead the conversation and do a little more listening and figure out what they need from you in order to like really make a strong connection and make it feel personal.
At least at the beginning, right? Because I think when you have an established audience, maybe you can be a little bit more flexible about what you do, but I think when you're building, it is very important to put a brand's audience first, right?
I think the audience is always the most important piece. Um yeah, I mean there's ways to evolve, but you evolve within the structure of what the audience needs from you. Otherwise it starts to feel like it starts to lose that authenticity or it starts to evolve in a way that will you might lose some audience, but then it's time to reevaluate and maybe rebrand and revisit who your audience is or where you want to go, or maybe your mission has changed, right? Like it's always an ever evolving thing. No brand is set in stone, and you're always able to pivot and change. You just have to be really strategic and thoughtful about how you go about doing that.
I think it's really interesting because I haven't given it I guess I haven't ever thought of it in that way, in that regard. I always sort of think of authenticity of being unapologetically yourself, right? Like doesn't matter who gets upset, this is who I am, type of thing. But
Sometimes you should really care about who you're upsetting. I think that's a good piece of advice as a person and as a brand. Like, that's advice I would give my children. Like, we don't want to hurt people's feelings. We can still stand in our own truth and be kind and respectful and open minded at the same time. And I think that's the heart of authenticity is not trying to be. I mean, maybe sometimes there are plenty of brands that are built around getting reactions out of people or making people angry or eliciting some sort of controversy from people. But I don't know that that works in the long term. And it certainly doesn't make people feel good to engage with that time and time again. So, yeah, can it work? Sure. But is that the kind of brand that everyone wants to build? No. So,
that's for every product, right? Like
yeah.
a very sort of like, my baking business and you're gonna be really rude to your customers. Like, is that gonna work?
Well, you have to be, customer service is also a huge part of a brand strategy, right? Like the full experience that people have with a brand from marketing to point of sale to customer service and beyond, like having them come back and stay loyal customers with you. All of it, um, all of it is important and all of it has an impact on how people feel about you as a brand.
That's very interesting, and, I think it's been a very sort of eye-opening conversation. Before we end, I wanted to sort of give you a space to tell all of our listeners and our viewers where they can go and find you if they wanna ever get advice from you, if there's anything cool that you're doing, or if you wanna check out your website. Can you tell us a little bit where we can go?
Absolutely. So my website is hillaryyoungcreative.com, and that's Hillary with one L. So Hilary, youngcreative.com. And I have plenty of information up there. I have a blog that I contribute to at least monthly, sometimes more, but monthly. I have a newsletter that you can subscribe to where I dole out really good advice on a monthly basis. And you can also sign up for a branding course that I have put together. So for small businesses out there that really might be struggling with their brand messaging, their brand strategy, I put together a very affordable course that really takes you through step by step, how to put the foundational pieces of your brand together. I have lots of different exercises. I have emails that are paired with it to like keep encouraging you and keep you going along the way. So all of that can be found on my website. And then I also give out a lot of free advice on the internet. So on Instagram, you can find me at Hillary Young Creative, and same on TikTok at Hillary Young Creative. And I talk about all things branding, brand strategy, content marketing, and dole out a lot of good digital marketing advice for businesses who need it.
Awesome. Yeah, I will be adding your link to everything so that people can go check you out.
Thank
It
you.
was great having you on the call today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I hope everyone really leaves this feeling how important it is to put time, effort, and resources into brand building.
Yeah,
So,
but I'll see you guys on the next episode. And thank you, Hillary, so much for coming.
thank you.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend, and of course, subscribe.